Question number 12, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The question is to the Minister responsible for Land Information and reads, can she assure the public that the Overseas Investment Office has not approved any applications by foreign investors implicated in the Mossack Fonseca tax avoidance scandal, and if so, how?
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Louise Upston.
Mr Speaker, the Overseas Investment Office is aware of concerns, and Inland Revenue have requested information regarding one application connected with Mossack Fonseca.
Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
To the Minister, are offshore trusts with New Zealand-based trustees or custodians, such as UNA Energy trustees, considered an overseas person by the OIO?
The
Mr.
Honourable
Speaker.
Louise Upston.
Mr Speaker, it's quite clear in the Overseas Investment Act about who an overseas person is that we require consent for them to purchase any sensitive land or significant business assets and fishing quota. That is someone who is not a New Zealand citizen, is not ordinarily resident in New Zealand, or an entity that is 25% or more owned or controlled by an overseas person.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to table a media release by the OIO dated 4 April 2016 titled Overseas Investment Office to provide clarity to custodian companies, which remains silent on whether offshore trusts
There's no need to add any further, because if it's a media release from the OIO, it's freely available to members.
Mr Speaker.
Further supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
When the OIO says it has taken a lighter touch in processing applications, does this include blind ignorance of potential tax evasion trusts and overseas criminals, such as those potentially linked to Mossack Fonseca's New Zealand partner companies?
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Louise Upston.
Mr Speaker, as I've said in this House before, the Act is very clear about the fact that it is a privilege to own New Zealand and land and assets. We actually have one of the more robust regimes around the world, which makes sure that we get that balance right in knowing that New Zealand is open to foreign investment, but absolutely the criteria are clear. Good character is one of those criteria, and the Overseas Investment Office looks at that criteria very significantly. More importantly, it is not just a condition, it is not just when the application is put forward, it is an ongoing condition of the consent. So if at a later point there is ever an issue associated with someone who has been given approval, then the Overseas Investment Office can and does take action with that breach.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Can the Minister confirm that the Overseas Investment Office has in the last 5 years approved 99.85% of all its applications, that it has too few staff and investigative resource even to routinely check whether the application conditions have been met, and if so, sir, why is the OIO pandering to the 1% of international high rollers who are playing fast and loose with New Zealand's regulatory regime, as shown in the Panama Papers?
Either of those two supplementary questions, the Honourable Louise Upston.
Mr Speaker, I'm happy to report to the House that the Overseas Investment Office has a very strong regime. One of the parts of that is to make sure in the very first quality control of the applications that are received. If you look at the statistics for February alone this year, that member will see the high number that were rejected and not accepted for processing. What that does mean is that at the end of the day, of those that are accepted, yes, we will have a higher number of those approved, because those that won't get approved are kicked out at the very first touch.
Order. Order. And that concludes questions for oral answer.